everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tea with Tina. I'm your host, Tina, and I'm so excited that each week, hopefully that you've been tuning in to my episodes, or actually each episode hits bi-weekly, so, but hey, maybe you like to listen to it weekly. I don't know, maybe you skip one and are able to listen to another one. But anyways, I hope every time you tune in, I would love for you to either review, rate, or subscribe from any one of the platforms. You can listen to Tea with Tina on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, also on YouTube. Share on your social media. Go ahead and text the link to a friend. I would love to hear from you. But today's episode, I have a very special guest, and I'm so excited to finally have him in the tea room. And he comes all the way from my bedroom. That is my amazing husband of 19 years. Give it up for my man, Louie. Woo!
What's up, everybody? Super excited to be on here on the Tea with Tina podcast that my wife has started, and looking forward to, talking about marriage with y'all. And thank you for tuning in, subscribing, doing all those fun and great things. And shout out to y'all, to all the sweet teas that are out there. Come on, somebody.
Sweeties. I love my sweet teas. I'm so excited to be filming again. So
that's
we
true.
Had a little,
it is again.
Yeah, because a few days ago we actually started filming, and halfway through my computer was just like, it wasn't recording anymore because I was out of space on my computer, and we were having some technical difficulties, and then we have technical difficulties with our camera, so everything was just shutting down. So
it was good content too.
Yes, it was so good. We had like 52 minutes of content, but it was chopped up and it didn't even record on the camera. So then we ended up just taking a break, and we got dinner, and it was a nice time. So so that's what happens. That's what happens in the worldwide atmosphere of doing podcasts. So if you don't know, now you know. So that's why we're filming a little bit late. We finally got to it after a jam-packed, awesome weekend.
Yep.
And so we're here again, trying test 2, or is that
this should work because we worked out everything.
Yeah.
I hope. But we're looking forward. So the first one we considered a test run. And I think we got it pretty dialed in on what we want to share, and that's going to help y'all out there.
Yeah. So this episode, I was like, man, I was like, I'm always praying and really asking, like, or thinking, who would I want next on as my guest? And we just celebrated 19 years of marriage, everybody, just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And we ended up going to dinner one night, and then we went to
Disney the next day.
The next
couple days
day.
Of celebration. It was good.
Yeah, a couple of days. So we kind of like planned it out. I feel like Monday night was our Monday was our actual anniversary. But like, we're older now, and like, I mean, like, Disney's like a full day thing, and we don't get to go often, but when we do go, like, we like to stay all day. So I need full energy. So I'm like, so I was like, let's keep it chill on Monday. We went Tuesday, and then we had like a whole plan.
We did. I said this originally in the first one. I'm gonna say it again, but sometimes I feel like we have a great plan for when we go to Disney as opposed to plans for other things that we do in our life.
That's right. Well, because Disney is so expensive. So you want to make sure, like, if I'm going, I want to get the full experience, my money's worth, I mean, praise God, we didn't have to pay for our tickets. We got some hookups, we got some relations there, praise the Lord. Louie' sister, shout out to you, who works there. She is an engineer, so she's the smart one in the family. I mean, you're smart too, but you know what I mean? Like, engineers,
well,
a different kind of smart. You're a different kind of smart.
No, I receive it. I'm not insecure about it at all.
Yeah. But anyway, so we got in, and then we had a plan. Mm-hmm. And so the plan was that we were going to go to Rise of Resistance first.
Yep.
And that was like a 50 or 80 minute wait. So in our 80-minute wait, we talked about how I wanted to do this episode and what would we talk about. And I was like, man, I think so many people, they tend to ask you when you've been married for so long, like, how do you stay married? How do you still have a healthy marriage? And, and so I wanted to share all the things that we've learned through 19 years of marriage and the struggles that we've been through, but how we've come out strong through every struggle. So that's why this episode is called Struggle to Strength. So, we're going to break it down for you all today, and I'm excited.
Yeah, Struggle to Strength. It's going to be good. I know you said we're going to share everything that we learned, but there's no way we can share everything we possibly learned.
A lot. Some tidbits, some little crumbs, appetizer.
But we do have some stuff. And it's 19 years. Nobody sees. Y'all see the finished product. Whenever you see somebody married for that long, y'all see a finished product like, man, and that's why people ask that question, like, why? How did you guys do it? How'd you stay married? And then typically when you're, in front of people, you're always putting your best foot forward. Come on, somebody.
Right.
So not many see the behind the scenes, behind
the
the workings of the marriage, or the healthy debates and all that. So 19 years, there's a behind the scenes part that we had to work through, and it's work. I said, not too long ago, I was speaking at my church as I'm a pastor. I get the opportunity to preach every now and then, and I said, marriage is fun, but it's more fun when you work at it. So it's definitely work. No matter what you do in life and you want it to be successful, it's going to be work. And marriage is work from day one. Some days are easier. Some days are harder. But so long as you keep putting in the work, it's compounding and you'll see the blessing of it.
Yeah. And it's not like working... I know the song, I'm working 9 to 5. It's working all the time, 24 hours.
24/7. Absolutely right.
You wake up with them, you go to bed with them, and they're there in the middle of the night all the time. So it's a lot of work, but fun work and hard work and hard work. So anyways, we wanted to break it down on just 3 points or 3 things that have really helped us through the struggles, and how we've come out stronger in each and every one of them. So one is we have pre-decided we aren't giving up. Giving up is not an option.
Nope.
If you know our background. So I'm a detailed person, and actually it was so funny when we first filmed this last time, or when we attempted to film. I shared how I'm a very detailed storyteller.
She is.
It takes what should take 3 seconds, takes me about 3 minutes. But I did so good last time, and he was like a star.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
because she gave our background. You want to try again?
Okay, I'll try.
19 years. She's going to break it down, Cliff Notes version, and enjoy this ride.
Are you ready? Okay, let's see if I can do this. Crack my knuckles. Woo, a little workout. If you're listening, I'm shrugging my shoulders, stretching, doing some things. Anyways, okay. So we met when I was 17. He was 18. I was in high school. He was not in high school at that time. Well, yeah. Well, anyways, So he was in high school, obviously, a year earlier. But we went to the same high school. We didn't meet on campus. However, we met off of campus and then we did the whole dating for a year, broke up, dated for a year, broke up. In the midst of the breakup, I was giving him the goodies, have given his cake and eaten it too, and that's when I got pregnant with our daughter, and we didn't stay together. We stayed broken up. I had our baby, and then we did the whole pick up, drop off every other weekend kind of thing. I was doing my thing. He was doing his thing. He actually moved to Orange County. I was still living in LA County area. And pick up, drop off. And then he had let me know that he had gotten engaged and he was about to get married. And I was like, okay. And then I was in a relationship and we were doing our own thing again. Pick up, drop off. And then one time he picked up and he was like, when we picked up and dropped off, that's all we did, pick up and drop off. There wasn't any line of communication at all. He wouldn't talk to me at all. I was like, he was scared of me. But anyway, so
I'm still scared of her. No, I'm just kidding. I love her. No.
Anyway, a healthy fear. So,
Healthy fear of being away from her. That's
oh,
why.
yes, tell the people. Okay, so, or else you're not going to be going into our bedroom tonight. Okay, so, yeah, in the midst of him picking up one time, he had given me a compliment, and I thought that was very strange. It was out of character for him, especially in that season, to one, talk to me at all, and then second, to give me a compliment. And then I don't know, that opened up a line of communication. And then at that point, he had shared that his engagement was off and called off. And then I don't know, I just remember all of a sudden him talking to me more, inviting me to hang out with him as he had my daughter. And we never had spent any time together, me, him, and her. I was curious and I fell into that death trap really quick. No, just kidding.
Life trap. Because look at the life that came out of
yes,
it. No,
yes. I don't recommend. Okay, this is not. Don't do Tina and Louie like this. But
what I always tell people, our story is not an example story. It's a story of grace. So
yes,
we were graced to
grace.
go through it, but it's not an example that you want to follow.
Yeah,
let me just say that.
I'll tell you when to start following. So don't follow this. Yeah. So then we ended up just hanging out, and then from there we got started dating. Some heartache things in between that, but to keep the story short, and then we ended up getting married. 2 kids later, I think we're married about 3 years at this point. And I was just, we're just fighting a lot because of just all the hurt from, like I shared, all the breakup, getting back together, all the breakup, all the hurt between, all the things of just hearing of, he, like I said, he got engaged. That was hard for me to move past. And so things like that. And so, so when we entered marriage, we entered with a lot of heartbreak. And so I took that into my marriage. I don't know so much what you took into our marriage, but I know for me, I took that into it. And so we were just arguing a lot. I was just like, man, I want to get a divorce. I'm stuck with this person for the rest of my life. I can't imagine doing this. And then lo and behold, I got invited to a church. And then from there, God saved me. I gave my life to Christ, and then he healed me, fulfilled me. And from then on. So that is the total trailer Cliff Note version of
there's
everything.
So much more to it.
So much more.
If you heard more of the details, you would probably stop liking me.
No, I know. When people sometimes they hear the
but
details,
I'm completely changed. Just
they
let you know.
give him the side eye. They
like,
give
him... Pastor Louie? Like, well, I wasn't always Pastor Louie.
Yeah, he was not always. No. But not that he's all to blame. What I realized too through our healing journey is that, first time I was a victim, but the second time I chose to be a victim. So anyways, that was a part of my healing journey. That was a huge part of that as well. As I believe it was an organization called Clemmers. They came to our church early on and did like a leadership inner healing, which I thought it was like, we're going to learn 5 laws of leadership, how to do this, how to speak to people, how to work with people. But no, it was like an inner cleansing. And that's where I would say like a big portion or a big part of my healing happened for us. Yeah. I felt like it happened for me there.
I remember too, because it was she's absolutely right. It was like more of like an inner healing, cleansing thing. There was a faith-based leadership organization called Clemmer and Associates, and you go into, you think like, oh, we're gonna learn leadership stuff, but we reflect back on it now, and we know that the best leader that comes out of you is the one that's inside of you, and if you got hurts, things that need to be healed, and certain bents or certain issues going on, that's going to reflect in your leadership at the time, but not only just in how you lead people, but how you lead your life. And that was like a breakthrough moment, and because it really took the perspective off of pointing at the other person and I don't want to say pointing. I guess at that time, our
Yeah.
maturity level at the time was
No.
like, we're pointing at each
Yeah.
other, but it was
No,
really
I
more.
pointed.
Okay, she did point.
I had records of wrongs. Like I had a whole book. Like I don't know if you guys know what encyclopedias are because they're like almost obsolete at this point in time. But I had a whole.
Encyclopedias, what?
Yeah.
Google it.
So I did. Yeah.
Yeah, and it took it from now turning that in pointing into yourself so
Right.
that you can be better. Because
Yeah.
if you're always looking on the outs to
Yeah.
the other spouse, and pointing fingers at the other spouse, then there's no ownership in the marriage.
It's good.
And if there's no ownership from either the wife or the husband, then and only one person's taking ownership, it's very difficult to move forward and get that strength that you need through the struggles that marriage can bring. And not to say that you're not going to go through any struggles. This is the whole point of what we're talking about, because you are going to have struggles. You're going to have moments where it's going to be mountaintop moments, moments where it's going to be valley moments, and everywhere in between. But it's how you go through them, grow through them as well, which is something else we're going to talk about. And I think what you said right there is just deciding that, hey, we're not going to give up. And I love that, because our faith tells us that we are more than overcomers. We're more than conquerors. God is with us. We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. So giving up is not a spirit that's within inside of us. But many times, like you look out in the world, and husbands and wives, they just want to give up.
Yeah. No. And I think that's where, because, 3 years of I think those first 3 years of marriage, like we wanted to give up, or I wanted to give up, and I kind of knew in my head, back then, that giving up was an option, because I'm like, oh, people get divorced all the time. It's fine. It'll work out. I see all these other couples and, they're divorced and they're fine, so divorce seemed like it was an option. But once we gave our life to Christ, we decided that divorce wasn't an option, and that we were not going to give up on our marriage, and we were going to do all the things we could to stay together with God at the center and not give up on us, and if, however, we get it, like, biblically, there's biblical reasons, or, if somebody if your spouse has an affair, if it's like, a physical abuse or whatever, of course, divorce is something that the Bible does say that you can get a divorce. But I'm talking about, other things. Like, we didn't have that going on in our life to like give up. It was more like practical hardships of just like, I always tell them, like, there was times in even to this day that in our marriage where I say I'm talking and I'm sharing everything, and I say I don't, and his response, I'm like, did you even hear what was I speaking English? I'm literally like what does this sound like to you? Am I speaking Minion? And I'm like because I was like, because I did not say that. So I'm like, oh, there's been seasons in our marriage when I'm just like, he doesn't hear me, because when I'm speaking, his response is exactly not what I said. So I'm just like, I don't get it. And we've been in seasons like that, but even in those moments where I've been like, man, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if we're going to get through this, because we're in this season. We just can't see eye to eye on these things. Where we've had to take some, I know for me, just like I've had to, get in my car, go meet a woman of God to just encourage me, sharpen me, refresh me, give me godly perspective,
And that's a part of deciding too. So when you decide like, hey, I'm not going to give up. Okay, well, what does that look like, not giving up? Because there's just deciding that you're not going to give up doesn't mean that you're not going to feel that way. So What does that look like when I do feel that way? And for you, it's like, okay, let me call a woman of God, or let me get in prayer. I don't know, whatever it may be, but setting up certain things because you don't want anything to stray you away from your decision. Because you can have a decision, but if you don't have any boundaries to keep you focused on your decision, then it's going to be very easy to come off of it, and you don't want to do that. So I think that's good. Like you said, you meet with women of God. Like, what else do you do?
Well, a lot of times, actually, the first thing I'll do is I tend to like to go. The best thing to help me clear my head and give me perspective is a nice walk. Like being, I'll put on worship music. I have some awesome headphones that are like noise protector. Like you can't hear anything. But in the like, it's almost like when I first got them, I thought, oh, this is kind of weird. Like you can't hear anything, you know, like, and so they're so good. So I'll just put those on, listen to worship, talk to God, and sometimes I feel like even as much as I talk to God and I still can't get out of my head, I still can't get out of my feelings, what I'm thinking. And that's when, so I have kind of like steps, I guess you can say. Like my first step, my first initial thing is I go to God. And sometimes I think my voice is louder than God's. So that's why I need to take like the next step, because my voice is just drowning out God's voice in that moment. So that's where I need to hear a physical voice. And so I'll call a woman of God that has been married a lot longer than me. You always go to people who are further ahead in their journey, so women that we've been married 19 years. So I'll go to a woman that's been married longer, than 19 years, that has a healthy marriage, not a perfect marriage, a healthy spiritual marriage that I know is a woman
that's good.
who is,
I like that.
yeah, a woman who is seeking God. So I'm not going to go to someone who I know doesn't have that faith, that relationship with the Lord, and is seeking that as God-centered in their own relationship, because I know what I want for mine. So then that's my next step. And then usually my third step after that is to come and talk to you. And either having to apologize for something, or just come together and then we work it out.
That's good. I love it. And then, having that healthy marriage, I love what you said, and having that healthy marriage. And that's important, because if you look for the perfect looking marriage, you can get fooled. But if you look for the healthy marriage around you, healthy marriages produce fruit, and healthy marriages produce, things that in the ones that are trying to impersonate that, trying to perfect that, whether it be through the posts on Instagram or whatever you look to, it's not necessarily going to produce the fruit that you want in your marriage. So finding that healthy marriage out there, people who've been married for that long around you to support the decision you're making, that I'm not giving up, is a powerful thing. When you have a powerful decision, I think our pastor said this, or I read this somewhere, I can't remember, but I do know this, that our life go in the directions of our strongest thoughts. So when you use the power to decide, you'll head in that direction. To decide not give up on your marriage, you'll head in the direction, okay, what am I going to do not to give up? And having those steps in there is like perfect, because I have those things where if I need to go to my pastor, I'll go to my pastor. I need to go to prayer, I go to prayer. I go to prayer more often than I do anything else, because I want to make sure that this is that I'm getting the correct perspective, but still have those others around me as well. But deciding not to give up is super important, especially when you're looking to go through any struggle. I'm not looking to go into struggle, but going through struggle, and you need strength. And the strength of the power behind the decision you make not to give up will get you through it many times.
Yeah. And like I said, that third step that, I'll come and we'll have a conversation. Our second thing is, we have an open line of communication, so we take time outside of our day. So we have weekly lunches.
Yeah.
And that's a time for us to share what we're going through, what I'm feeling, or a lot of time is what I'm feeling.
I feel too, but she just has more stuff to feel, I guess. I don't know.
I think I'm the one that's I don't
She's
know
in tune with her feelings.
Yeah, it's usually me. We just talk about what we're just going through, and we'll sort it out, whether it's between us, or maybe we're dealing with a situation with our kids, or finances, or just making big life decisions. That's a time that we just have an open line of communication.
Yep.
And sometimes it's hard when you have different ways of communication. Like I said earlier, I'm a total it takes me 3 hours to get to one point, you know. Not 3 hours, I'm just exaggerating. But it takes me a long time where he's very direct. And so even early on in our marriage, it was kind of frustrating on how we communicate, because for him it was like very black and white, very black and white.
Early on.
Yes, like like a long time ago.
It was more frustrating.
Well,
I think sometimes
it
it can be.
because
Sometimes
I didn't understand it, and so I would find myself frustrating because I felt like I was communicating to you and you weren't like responding, or the things I would ask of you you wouldn't do, and I was just like, I'm not understanding. Like, I feel like I'm telling you straight out like what I need or what I need help with, and you weren't responding, or you weren't, doing those things I asked. So then I felt like, man, he doesn't love me. He doesn't want to do these things to help me, or he's not responding the way I wanted him to. And I felt myself in this frustration because you weren't communicating the way that, well, I ultimately communicate. So I remember having this, I think we were talking about it, this revelation that, you see things very black and white. Like, it needs to be detailed, like, for like, either when it comes to like just the smallest things, like stuff around the house, it needs to be exactly, send pictures, exactly what I need. Because if I don't, then he's not gonna do it right or do it at all. And then realizing that, and just even the way we process emotions, right? Like, we've talked about how we handle different things like stress, and when we're going through things, like he's like easily like, it's like a light switch, Tina. He would tell me, just flip it, turn it off and turn it on. I'm like, I'm not like that. I can't function like that. I wish I could just turn it off and turn it on. And then it was just so funny because I remember us having this conversation, and it was like a light bulb for me. I'm like, I'm like a dimmer. I'm like,
it takes time.
Yeah. So just understanding those things about each other, because that can help a lot with your frustration, or maybe not feeling loved, or not feeling like, or maybe sometimes it just feels like you're not on the same page because you guys are just not understanding how each other communicates, right?
Yeah, you each have different perspectives, and that's one thing that we learned in these 19 years, just through the growth in our marriage, and then just even having people speak into our marriage, going to counseling too as well. Her perspective is way different than mine, and when you're not understanding of each other's perspective, it definitely gets to the point like what she said, minion talk, and you're saying something, and it's not being received in the manner in which you're trying to say it. But
Right.
Having clear communication and open communication is important in the marriage, but just as important, that open communication is understanding how that person receives the communication. It's one way for you to know how you communicate and say, hey, this is how I communicate. That's great. And but at the end of that, that's still a little bit selfish, because it's like, this is how I communicate. I expect you to receive it how I communicate. But when you get to a point in marriage where you're like, okay, this is how you communicate, so I'm going to work towards moving in the direction so that you can understand it, and then that just unlocks something that's just powerful in your marriage. And then you're both going to continue to grow in your communication with one another. So how we communicated 19 years ago ain't how we communicate now. And it shouldn't be. There should always be growth, and it should always be healthy growth, and it should always be growth, because you can have growth and have it not be healthy. Something bad can grow. That's why you go to a garden. You see in a garden, there's roots. You got to pull the roots out. Sometimes you got to take those roots out so they continue to grow. But all in all, to say, we have to understand each other's communication.
Yeah. And that's my next point, is commitment to growth. That's my last point. Yeah. Number 3 is, through the struggles, communication is often a struggle within marriage. But, the way we strengthen is our commitment to grow in these areas in commitment. Oh, yeah. And so what we do is, like he just said, like, we don't communicate the same way we used to communicate. We're getting better, or I'm getting better.
We're always getting better.
There's still room for improvement I can say on my end. And so, but it's awesome. I'm always continuously like self-reflecting, and I think that's a huge part. Is I'm not self-reflecting on how he can do better, and maybe at moments I've had that, because I'm not gonna say I'm perfect and I never think those things, and but there are a lot of things throughout our marriage that I'm constantly self-reflecting and thinking like, man, how can I communicate better. I don't want to communicate this way. Sometimes I feel like I have an outer body experience where I hear or I can see myself and how I'm communicating. I'm like, and I'll get back like, man, I don't want to communicate like that. I know I need to get better, and those are things that I've had to unlearn just from, younger, just how you saw communication, maybe from relationships and that you were raised in. And so, I've had to unlearn some things and relearn how to communicate. And so I'm in the process of just getting better. I know with our marriage, because sometimes I can lead, so I can get so I realize with myself I can get very emotional, and when I get if it's something that is super hurtful to me, I can feel like just like almost like heat, like I feel warm, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I feel like I can't even control my emotions.
Your body starts
Yeah.
reacting.
So I have had to learn, like, I know these things about myself, and because I am working on it, I know for me, I need to take a time out and go and maybe go out and out. I love being outside, so I need to go take a time out outside, maybe go for a little bit walk, go for a breather, and then, maybe in 10-15 minutes, go ahead and gather again, and then finish our conversation. We never leave the conversation unsaid or unresolved, but I know for myself, so that's like a commitment to growth on my end when it comes to like us, our relationship, communication, and how I can get better. So I'm not like, oh, Louie needs to do this. I mean, sometimes, don't get me wrong though. Like, I mean, I do let him know when I feel like, man, you could be a little bit better on texting. So
I can.
and so I'll let
And
him
she
know
lets me know it.
Yeah. Yeah, because we have good conversations that, where before it would be very surface, like, oh my God, you don't text back, blah, 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 you don't text. That's surface. But the deeper part of the not texting back is I'll let him know, like, when you don't text, I don't feel like I'm valued, because I feel like it's not something that you are putting me as a priority to respond to me, so then I don't feel like a priority in your life when I don't hear back from you, I don't get a response from you, and I feel like I'm just common, and we don't ever treat what is uncommon as common, and so you could treat each other very, very common, what we learned. We had somebody who's speaking to our marriage, and woo, they go
Yeah.
they go some good advice on that.
Really good advice. Really, really good advice. And that's just that even what you just said right there, that's a topic in itself for marriage, just treat each other common. So it might be something for another Tea with Tina podcast, but commitment to growth most definitely is being a pastor. I've had many conversations with husbands, and they're like, man, she's just changed from the 5 years that I knew her. She's a different person. And I tell them, good. Because she should be changing, she should be growing in a fashion that's better, that's different.
50 pounds heavier, I've changed.
But you don't want them to. You don't want
more squishy for you.
You don't want the other to be in a spot where they're the same person. And I turn to the husband. I tell him too, like, do you want to be the same person? Would you want to be the same person married to that same person if you were her? Like, that's not who you want to be. So there should be a commitment to growth. So there's a fallacy, I guess you can say, of just like, oh, they should be the same as when I married. Like, no, that's not
good.
true. So as much as you're committed to your growth, you have to be committed to your spouse's growth, and not so much telling them how to grow. Like, of course, iron sharpens iron, so you are going to speak into their lives and certain things, because you see certain things, and everybody has blind spots, and especially if you're married, you're going to see more of that from each other. But to know that there's a growth that God's doing in them, that He's shaping and molding in them, then we have to be committed to allow God to do that, because it's very easy to be like, I want you to grow like this, or she say that to me, like, this is the way I want you to grow, but that's again what we want it, and there's a certain way that God wants it for each one of us, And having that commitment to growth is super important, not only for yourself, but also for your spouse, so that your marriage is stronger. And when the struggles come, you're strengthened in it.
Yeah, I just want to go back to what I was sharing earlier about, another way we can commit to growth is self evaluating um, our communication, or at least I know for myself, evaluating how I communicate, and there's things I know I can get better on my communication, but also I like to invite my husband into those areas of where I can get better. Like recently I was listening to a couple, and so I got some really great, I would say meat and potatoes from them about, just about being a helpmate. And that was an area that as I was listening, I was self-reflecting and thinking, what is a way that I can, you know, or there are many ways that I can be a better helpmate. And so I was like, man, this is an area I really need to get better. So we had went to dinner, and I had pre-decided that I was going to ask you, and whatever his response was going to be, I wasn't going to be offended by it, because I really knew like this is an area that I want to be better in. And so yeah, we were at dinner, and then I told him like, man, I really want to be a better helpmate. I feel like I've been failing in this area, and I was like, I think super a little bit too hard on myself, because I was like crying and everything, not like just a little bit of tears. So, just because I felt really bad, and then he just reassured me that I have been being a great helpmate, and that even though when we listen to those things, what did you say? When you listen to those things, you're not supposed to like what tear yourself down, or what did you say?
Well, I'm trying to remember what I said, but I do know that when we listen to those things, they're not there to tear you down. They're there to give you a pathway to growth.
Pathway to growth. Yeah.
And just know that there's room for improvement, and there's areas that you can improve upon.
Yeah. And then so I took that, and then I was like, okay, but I still wanted to know what areas I can be a better helpmate. And so, yeah, he shared those areas. And so, yeah, those are some ways that we are committed to growth. Those are some personal ways I've been committed to growth in our relationship. And even today, as you're listening, like he just said, we're not telling you these things. So you're like, oh man, I should be doing this better. I've already wanted to give up so many times, or maybe you gave up, or I don't know, but don't be tearing yourself down,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and maybe for you, communication has been difficult. You're not doing all the tips and things that we have struggled with and what we've strengthened throughout the time of our marriage, and you haven't maybe been taking those steps. But again, don't tear yourself down.
Yeah.
Just be open to committing to growth in those areas, and
Mm-hmm.
invite your spouse into that space, and to tell you where you can grow.
Yeah, that's so true. I think people can look at these type of podcasts and how we're sharing certain things, married 19 years, or you look at other ones like my wife's saying we were listening to another couple, and you can look at how you have not grown and be discouraged by it. But I encourage you just to flip the script on that and just look at it as an encouragement that there is room for growth. And that's important when you're having a commitment to growth in the marriage, committing to your own growth as a husband, and as the wife, as a wife, and be encouraged by that instead of, being discouraged by the lack of growth that you have. So long as you're breathing, there's room for growth in your marriage. There's room for growth as you as a man of God, and you as a woman of God, as a husband, as a wife. So be encouraged by that and be committed to it.
Yeah. I think this has been some good tea, right? Spilling the tea
Yeah.
on marriage, and the three things that has really helped us through some things that we struggled with, and sometimes we still struggle with. But what how to strengthen those areas. I pray they helped you, and they really added value to yourself personally, but to your marriage.
Yeah.
Amen.
And thank you for having me on. It's an honor being on the podcast with you. Thanks for the invite, all the way from the bedroom. And
Bedroom.
glad to be here with you, all you sweet teas. It was a great time. I love talking about marriage and love being here with my wife.
Yeah, and actually, you did such a great job that I'm thinking I'm going to have you on again. Should we have him on as a guest? Yes. We're going to talk about, actually, I already pre-decided he's going to be a guest again because we are approaching the holidays, the Christmas holidays. And sometimes the holidays could be just a season of just messy, whether it's messy relationship wise, messy finance wise. Like sometimes it can be that way, and I want to share with you how we find the merry, MERRY, in the mess of Christmas. And so we're going to share some things that we have learned, with our family, and just how to get through that Christmas season, all that mess during Christmas season, and be merry in it all. So stay tuned for that next episode. But don't forget, for this episode, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. I would love to hear from you, and I can't wait for you to tune into my next episode. God bless.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Tea with Tina podcast. We had a lot of good tea today. Hey, make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms at Tea with Tina, or my personal page at Tina A. Gutierrez. And hey, make sure that you tag me. Make sure to also subscribe to this podcast. Leave comments in the iTunes section and leave me a review. A huge shout out to my family, who's always been my biggest supporters and the best team I could ever be a part of. I'll see you all soon for some more tea. God bless.